everyone, it's Rebecca from Chloe's Creative Cards, and today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely Christmas project using our 3D Poinsettia embossing folder, stamp and die set, and some of the little pieces as well. So we'll get started, and I'm going to bring in an 8x8 inch card blank, and then I've cut a piece of Mars pearl card, and we're just going to edge this with some glitter. So I'll just grab some scrap paper and a chisel tip glue pen, and we're just going to drag that glue pen towards us on all four sides of the piece, like so. And then I'm just going to flip that over so we don't have the glued side, and I'm going to bring in some Santa's Suit Sparkelicious glitter, and we're just going to apply that to the edge. So just dunking that in all the way around, like so, and then it leaves that lovely red glittery edge. Okay, I'm going to stick that onto our card blank. So I'm just going to take some Dries clear glue, and we're just going to apply that to the back. So, and then stick that down onto there. Okay, I've then taken a piece of white plain card, and I've just done the same. I've just edged, but this one I've edged with Crystal Crush Sparkelicious. I've just popped some foam pads on the back, so we'll just peel those off. Onto there, like so. I've then taken a piece of foiled paper from the Gilded Christmas paper pad, and I've chosen this lovely gold holly design. So again, applying some of that Dries clear glue to the back, and we're just going to stick that on. Like so. Okay, then I've got another piece of, but this time I've got crystal white pearl cards, so we're going to stick that on with some foam pads. We're just building up all of the base layers here on our card, ready to add all of the pretty bits. We're just going to stick that into the centre as well. Okay. Then I've taken another piece of crystal white pearl card, and I've just trimmed this slightly smaller, and this is the piece we're going to emboss onto. So I'm going to take our Poinsettia 3D embossing folder, and I'm just going to position that in the centre of this piece. So some of the foliage will kind of hang off the edge, but that's okay because we're going to create a frame to go around this anyway. I'm just going to pop that in like so. I'm going to bring in my plates, so I'm going to use my base plate and pop my folder with my cardstock in, and then I'm going to use my metal shim and my plastic shim, just because our machine's a little bit older and it needs a little bit of extra pressure. So I'm just going to run that through, wait for that to come out the other side. See, we've got that lovely embossed image on there. Okay, I'm just going to bring in some scrap paper again, so we're going to use some gilding wax now. So we're going to use some, I think it's King Gold, let me have a look, King Gold. So we're going to use some King Gold gilding wax. I'm just going to carefully just dab a little bit on my finger and then dab it off onto the paper. Like so, because I don't want too much. We can always go back and add a little bit more. And then I'm just going to carefully, very, very lightly over the image, sort of rub my finger over each of the elements, like so. dip that back in again. And again, just rubbing over each of the parts. You can see how we've got that lovely kind of gold metallic feel to it. Again, if you want to add a little bit more though, you can kind of go back in and add a bit more. I quite like the subtle sort of gold for the background of this one. There we go. You can see we've got that lovely golden kind of image there. Okay, so we'll just move that to one side, and I'm just going to quickly wipe off that gilded wax before it gets everywhere. Okay, so then what I've done is I've done one earlier, and I've just popped on some little red crystals just onto the berries. So I've just used the Dries clear glue in one of the bling boxes and just popped those on there. And then we're going to stick this onto our card. So I'm just going to again use some Dries clear glue and just apply that to the back like so. We'll just stick that into the middle. Okay. Then I have taken a piece of crystal white pearl card, which is slightly, sort of the same size as the piece we've just embossed onto, slightly smaller than the piece we'd stuck on with foam pads. And I've just die cut an oval from the centre, just one of our basic ovals, just choosing one that kind of shows as much image as you would like it to show. And then I'm going to take the Sparkling Stars folder, and we're just going to emboss that piece, just to add a little bit of extra detail. So just pop that in there, and then I'm going to bring in my plates. So we're going to use the 2 clear cutting plates, and then I'm just going to run that through our die cutting machine. Wait for that to come out to the side. And then you can see we've got that lovely embossed frame there. Just adds a little bit of extra detail. Okay, so we're going to edge that with a little bit of glitter again. So I'll just grab some scrap paper, and I'm just going to take that chisel tip glue pen again and just drag towards me like so. And then we're going to cover that in Crystal Crush, Sparkelicious. So just dunking that in all the way around. So it just gives us that lovely little glittery edge. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in some foam pads, and we're just going to apply some of these to the back. So I'm going to do a double layer just to make it stand out a little bit more. Obviously, if you're posting or anything, you can make all of these flat and it would still look lovely. So I'm just going to pop those on just as a double layer all the way around. And then we'll just cut some of those a little bit smaller. Just grab some scissors. Like so. Just working all the way around the frame. And just keep going until you've got enough on there to kind of make it quite stable. Like so. Okay, just get rid of these. Okay, so you can see we've kind of got foam pads all the way around there. It's going to make it quite strong on our cards. So I'm just going to peel the backs off these. And then we'll get that stuck on to our card. Okay. So we're then just going to line that up over the top. So, and stick that onto there. There we go. Okay, now we're going to start to build up the poinsettias on the image. So I'm just going to pop that to one side and I'm just going to bring in our vellum. So you're going to use 2 sheets of the red poinsettia and 1 of the green. So I'm just going to, I have got some already done, so I'm just going to show you with 1. And then, where have I put my embossing folder? There we go. Okay, so we're just going to pop this vellum sheet from the vellum pad into the folder, and then I'm going to bring in my plates. Now you can see how you've got a lovely bleed around those poinsettias, so it kind of doesn't matter if it's not lined up quite perfectly. So I'm going to use my base plate, I'm going to pop my folder in, my metal shim and plastic shim, and run that through the machine. And while that's going through, I'll just bring in the dies. And then you can see we've got that lovely embossed poinsettia there. Okay. So we're then going to take the dies that you get in the set as well and just line those up over the top. And just use some low tack tape just to secure those in place. And the smaller one. Like so. And then I'm going to bring in my 2 clustering plates. And pop that in the centre. And run that through the machine again. You can see, oh, we might need to actually put an extra plate in just for the machine, because I forgot my plastic shim in the middle there. That would help. And I might add in the metal as well, just because ours doesn't have a lot of pressure. So just pop those in. And run that back through. There we go. You can definitely hear it cutting this time. Just carefully peel those off there. And then you can see we've got that lovely, there we go, perfectly cut poinsettias. Just pull those away from the tape. Okay, so then what I've gone and done is just added some tiny little dots of glue just into the sort of the centre of the leaves. So, and the smaller one, and then we're bringing that scrap paper again, and we're just going to cover those with Santa's Suit Sparkelicious. Now you can see we've got those lovely glittered up poinsettias. So I'm going to bring in the ones that I did earlier, just so that they're all dry. And just move those out of the way. I'm going to bring these ones in. So we've got the 2 red ones and then the green one I've just left plain. So what we're going to do is just create kind of a valley fold down the centre. Now I find it easier to flip it over and sort of crease them down like that, but you can do it either way. You can kind of crease them upwards, it's up to you. And then the red ones. Like so. And we'll just add a blob of glue to the centre and pop that in there. Just give it a couple of seconds to grab. And then the other one. Blob of glue in the centre. Sort of pull those petals up a little bit, or leaves I should say. Stick that into the middle. Okay. Then for this one, I've then just created an acetate layer as well. So I'm just going to grab in my acetate, an anti-static bag, and my wow ink pad. So just going to dust this over with an anti-static bag. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my Poinsettia stamps and ink those up with a Wow Clear embossing ink pad. Like so. And stamp those into the centre. Okay. And then we're going to use some Golden Glow Wow powder. I'm just going to grab some scrap paper again. Trying to be careful not to get any fingerprints on the acetate. And I've just missed a little bit on the small one there. I haven't put enough pressure on. But we'll just heat those up. And then again, I've just gone in and added some little dots of PVA glue and covered them with that Santa soup glitter. So I've got one that's already done and one for the small one. So we're just going to stick those on with some 3D glue gel. So for the large, I'm just going to pull those petals up by creating a crease at the base. And then we'll bring in our one that we've just stuck together. Little blob of glue on the back. Stick that into the middle, and then I have got a sparkler. This is one of the 12mm sparklers for the centre. And then we'll just stick that one back on, and that's got the 10mm sparkler in the centre. And then we'll bring our card back in, and we can get those stuck onto there. So again, blob on the back, and just position those where you would like them on the card. Go. Okay, then I have got a bow, so we're just going to stick the bow into the top corner. Now it's a little bit of a small bow because we're running out of this ribbon, so I'm just going to stick that into the top corner and a sparkler into the centre. Then I've taken some of, I took the die from the set of the little kind of swirl, and I've cut those from some gold mirror card just to slot in behind our poinsettias. So I'm just going to add a little bit of PVA, a little bit of 3D glue gel, sorry, and then tuck those in. Like so. just tucking those in wherever you think they might be needed. Just adding those in, and one more. Like so. It just adds that little bit of extra detail. Okay, then we're going to create the sentiment. Oh, one's fallen out. Stick that back in. Okay, so for the sentiment, I've taken the Season's Greeting little sentiment. So we're then going to stamp that onto some crystal white pearl card. So I'm just going to dust that over with an anti-static bag, ink that up, and stamp that into the centre. I'm going to take that Golden Glow Wow powder again, sprinkle that over, tip that back into the jar, and then heat that up. And then I'm just going to bring in my guillotine, just trim around that. Like so. And then I'm going to bring in some of that Mars pearl card again, and I'm just going to kind of measure that to create a little mat for it. And then there we go. Okay, so we're going to edge that little red piece, the Mars pearl piece, with some glitter. So we're going to edge it with our chisel tip glue pen first. And then again, dunk it in that Santa's suit, Sparkelicious. And pop that to one side. Okay. And then we're going to stick this onto our cards. So I'm just going to grab some foam pads and just trim those down a little bit. Apply them to the back of here. Stick that into the corner. And then again, some foam pads onto our sentiment. And stick that into the middle there. And then we're just going to add a little bit of bling to finish off our cards. So I'm just going to add 3 dots to the top corner and 3 dots to the bottom corner of glue, and then we're just going to take some red bling stones. There we go. And then I'm just going to use my gem tool, pick those up and pop those onto the card. Okay, and I've then just taken some of our self-adhesive sparkles in Luscious Yellow. I'm just going to use these kind of golden ones over here, and I just kind of tend to pick them up, slide them off with my finger like so, and just dot those into the background just to finish off that card. And then you can see how we've got that lovely sparkly Christmas Poinsettia Christmas card. So I'm going to hold that one up here and pop in the one that we already had done. I can get those side by side. There we go. So you can see the one we've just created and then the one that I have made earlier. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. As always, all the products will be listed in the description below. Thanks for watching. Bye.